will depend on whether the tax is an absolute tax or whether it's a percentage tax. Now, in the case of an absolute tax, the per unit tax is the vertical distance between S and S plus tax. So if the absolute tax is $1, right, the gap between S and S plus tax is equivalent to $1, right? So for an absolute tax, there will be a parallel leftward shift of the supply curve. But for a percentage tax, okay, the shift will be a divergent shift, okay, because at higher prices, the per unit tax will be higher because it's expressed as a percentage of the price of the good. Okay, tax burden, right, will be, who bears the tax burden will be dependent on the elasticity of demand and the elasticity of supply. Okay, so if demand is elastic, the seller will bear more of the tax burden. Inelastic, consumer will bear more. Okay, same with supply and same with elastic and inelastic supply. Okay, so it's important that you are able to illustrate the sharing of the tax burden. Okay, so the green rectangle here represents the consumer's burden, while the purple rectangle represents the seller's burden. Right? So important that you can differentiate and you are able to illustrate the share of the seller's burden and the consumer's burden. Okay, so that's it for markets in action. Next topic is on output and cost.
output and cost 我就都不知道在讲什么呀。
So in output and cost, you learn about the law of diminishing returns, which states that when additional units of labor are added to a fixed amount of capital, eventually the marginal product of labor will fall. Okay. And this law is applicable only in the short run when there is a fixed factor of production present. Right? So because of the law of diminishing returns, the firm's marginal product for labor curve will be in this shape here. Right? Initially, the marginal product will increase, but when the law of diminishing returns sets in, the marginal product will decrease.
这难摇什么没有这个 graph？
Okay, next we move on to short run costs. So you should be able to differentiate between what is a fixed cost, right, and a variable cost, right? So a fixed cost is present even when the output is equal to 0. But in the case of a variable cost, okay, when the output is 0, variable cost is also equal to 0. Okay, next will be the various cost formulas. Right, important that you remember all the formulas, okay, because there will be calculation questions, okay, where you need to apply all the different cost formulas. Right, so remember all these cost formulas. Okay, I'm not going to run through all of them. They're all here. Right. Okay, now we can also classify costs either as explicit or implicit costs. So, quick summary. Explicit costs are costs paid for directly with money. Right? While implicit costs are actually opportunity costs. Okay? So by looking at the explicit and implicit costs, okay, you can also calculate the profits of the firm. And you must differentiate between accounting profit, which is total revenue minus explicit costs, and the accounting profit, which is total revenue minus explicit costs minus implicit costs. So again, know the formulas for the different type of profit. Alright. Okay, then the next few topics covers the 4 different market structures. Okay. So this is also given in your notes. Okay, under perfect competition, there is an overview of comparison of the characteristics of the four market structures, right? So firstly, we look at perfect competition.
你把电话给我了。
Some points to remember about perfect competition. Firms are price takers, they cannot control the price, they have to follow whatever the market price is. The demand curve for the firm is horizontal. And in order to maximize profit, they have to produce at the output where MR is equal to.
可以的，谁当分的？如果你要自己不是，你用 WiFi。
And in the long run, firms can only break even because there are no barriers to entry, because of the free entry and exit of firms.
So where? What? That's his blazer. Right.
Now, in the short run, there are three possible profit outcomes that a firm could chase.
If I want, I can go there. Just
It could earn supernormal profit if the AR is greater than ATC. Normal profit if AR is equal to ATC. Or subnormal profit if the AR is less than that.
在这个菜，要做掉有没有？雷着不会容易收的，雷着容易收的。
Now, if the firm is earning subnormal profit, meaning that it is incurring losses, okay, it may need to shut down. Right? So the shutdown condition, right, would be when the price is greater than ABC, or when total revenue is, sorry, when price is less than ABC, or when total revenue is less than ABC. But if you continue production in price greater than ABC, or ER is
You
greater
can reach, dude. You can reach. What, dude? Do you know your fuck just went into the video? My what? My what?
in the long run,
You taking video for the whole day. And you
mentioned this earlier, right? Firms can only earn normal profit, okay, because of the free entry and exit of firms.
去哪里？
yeah, everything you're using, you like to. Yeah. Okay, lor.
Okay, so you should know the adjustment process from short run equilibrium to long run equilibrium. Okay, so for example, if firms are running supernormal profits in the short run, new firms are attracted, the market supply will increase, price and profit falls until eventually the price is equal to average total cost. Okay, and the firms will then stop entering, so firms can only break even in the long run. Okay, next market structure, monopolistic competition.
我等一下没有空的，我没有谁的。
Some key characteristics, there is product differentiation, firms produce a differentiated
看一
product,
下你有没有空。
and firms can control the price to a certain extent because the product is
今
differentiated,
天晚上不是，后天会
and there is also non-price competition.
Sky 啦。
明天我大概9点，晚上9点过后就。
Okay, now you should be familiar with the various profit diagrams, okay, for monopolistic competition, and bear in mind that the profit diagrams will also apply to monopoly as well, okay, because for monopoly and monopolistic competition, the profit diagrams are exactly the same, right? So, for example, for supernormal profits, okay, you will need to be able to shape in the amount of profits, okay, and show what is the price and what is the profit maximizing output. So similarly for normal profits, okay, be familiar with drawing the diagram,
Zero profit is always out.
and this occurs when AR is equal to
Then,
ABC.
then normal profit 是在中间的，then
哦，subnormal 在这。
subnormal 中间，then supernormal 往下。
And finally, we have negative profits or when subnormal profits.
then 还有 supernormal 的，这是在中间，in the middle。
在上面，你第一个 OK， 你的 normal profit 是看那个
Okay.
你的
So
那
be
个
familiar.
是
Okay. My suggestion is practice drawing the diagram. When you study, don't just look at the diagram, but practice drawing. Then you will know how, you will remember how to draw
你
it
记得那个
during
AR 跟 MR。
during the
那个 super normal 是在 between AR 跟 MR，跟那个上 normal
Okay, moving on.
就是 above
Oligopoly.
都全部东西。
然后
We learned about the
normal
king
是
demand curve
AR
model,
看 AR，
which is based on these two assumptions here.
我是这样记的。
有时候给的很厉害，我也问他，他很会有这种东西记，
来
他 better 很多
那反正多他记不住了。
，because 他 again。
2小一块
And because of the two assumptions, right,
7 plus
the demand curve for the firm will have two sections. An elastic portion above E1 and an inelastic portion below E1. Alright, so that is the king demand curve.
When is oligopoly?
And the last market structure is monopoly.
我只喜欢 monopoly。
So characteristics, single seller, a unique product or product that has no local substitutes,
天啊，
and there are barriers to entry.
control。
So like monopolistic competition and perfect competition, a monopolist can earn three different kinds of profits: supernormal,
把你摸一下。
subnormal, or normal profit. And conditions are the same, okay, as with the previous market structures. But unlike the other market structures, the monopolist can continue to earn supernormal profits even in the long run due to barriers to entry. Okay, and as I mentioned earlier, note that the diagrams for monopoly are exactly the same as the diagrams for monopolistic.
你看我跟你那个学的应该讲吗？
Okay, we also learned about price discrimination, and for the firm to practice price discrimination, four conditions need to be satisfied. Must have a downward sloping demand curve, must be able to separate these markets. Buyers in the different markets must have different price elasticity of demand, and the firm must be able to prevent sale. Alright, so we also showed you the diagrams for price discrimination, how the price is
这要
determined.
很有钱吗？好，
And point to remember is that the price will always be higher in the market where the demand is more inelastic. In this case, market A. Right?
就像敌人要对我负责。可是我不要退在这里。
And if you were to do a comparison between perfect competition and monopoly, you find that a monopoly will charge a higher price, okay, but produce a lower level of output as compared to the firm in perfect competition. Okay, so that concludes the different types of market structures. The next topic that we're going to look at will be market failure, public goods, and externalities.
还有几个
So, public goods has got two characteristics. They are non-excludable and also non-rival in consumption. So these are some examples of public goods:
所以你没有去 POM。
national defense, parks, playgrounds, traffic lights, the law, and traffic control. Right, so these are all these public goods. They are not excludable. They are also non-rival in consumption. Okay. And because of the two characteristics of public goods, right, it results in the three-rider problem. Okay, so next we move on to externalities, right? Externalities are cost or benefits that affects third parties, right? Therefore, on people who do not participate in the transaction, okay, they are third party cost or benefits.
I can read that one actually.
So essentially, there are four types of externalities.
有看下面那个表吗？ Simon, thanks for your help yesterday.
And we also provided you with
I
examples
still
of
can
each of the different types of externalities. Right? So what are the solutions, okay, to solve the problem of
叫
externalities?
赛米，
If it's a positive externality, it should be encouraged through the use of a subsidy. But if it's a negative externality, it should discourage through the use of taxes.
我不要 send，自己 send。
So we give you an example. Okay, what happens if there's a negative externality? When you impose a tax, the supply curve will shift to the left.
叫赛
The
米
price will
selfish。
increase and the quantity will decrease. Right? So this will reduce the amount of the externality.
跟自己打了好不好？
Okay, and finally the last topic, right, the topic that we just covered, okay, labor market. Okay, so just to summarize, we looked at how wage and employment is determined. What are the factors that affect the demand for labor and the supply of labor? How trade unions can increase the wage rate either by restricting the labor supply or imposing a minimum wage rate. Okay, and we also looked at the change in the individual wage rate. So, for example, if there's an increase in labor supply, okay, this causes a fall in the wage rate and an increase in employment. Role of trade unions in increasing the wage rate, 3 methods. And what we just covered, okay, the high skill versus the low skill workers. Finally, the Lorenz curve, right? The looks at inequality. Okay, now we're running a bit of time. Okay, but I'd just like to now in Olive, right, we have already uploaded some of the past year paper. Okay, so can you take note of these 2 questions which I would like you all to practice? The answers are there already, right? Look at the AY 2014-2015 April semester paper. Alright, look at question 4 and question 5. I don't have time to run through it with you, right? But can you look at question 4 and question 5 of the April 2014-2015 paper?
那些的呗。